See ya. Just got off an Instagram live and just got asked for the 1,000th time how much rehabs cost or how to accurately calculate rehabs if you're not familiar with it. It's not really as hard as it sounds. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get dried off, gonna get in the truck, and I'm going to take you to one of our latest rehab properties and walk you through the rehab. I'll point out how to quickly and accurately calculate how much things cost so you can make good offers. See you in a second. I get it. If you've never rehabbed a property before, it can be kind of hard to figure out what things are going to cost so you can know how to accurately judge a rehab, even if you're going to wholesale it or you're going to flip it. Luckily, it's not as hard as it sounds. I'm going to walk through some of the simple ways to do it on the drive over there and then show you some real life examples. All right, let's go. I usually have my amazing video producer do this with me, but I'm doing this one all by myself. So give me a like for doing this all by myself. I'm going to provide good content, I promise. Let's go. Put it in reverse. All right, let's back up and not hit anything. Being able to accurately and quickly figure out what something's going to cost to rehab it, or at least getting close to what it's going to cost, is extremely important when it comes to any type of real estate investing. Because if you're going to fix up the house yourself, you're going to want to have some kind of idea what it's going to cost before you close on it so you can run your numbers properly. And if you're going to wholesale it out and not even do any of the work, you need to know what it's going to cost someone else to do it so you know how to properly price what you're selling so you can make the most profit while leaving enough meat on the bone for the person who's buying the house from you. The thing about rehabbing is it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science. Like, there are definitely strategic ways you can use to find out how to rehab things and what things are going to cost, but everybody can do a rehab different. If I lined up 10 different people, they could come up with 10 different budgets and come up with 10 different finished products. So part of it is going to be figuring out the types of finishes you're going to want in your rehab. And you do that a few different ways by looking at some of the houses in the area that have recently sold. You can go on Zillow. If you're an agent, you can look them up. But if you're looking at an area that has nice, just simple granite finishes, simple cabinets, you don't need to do marble finishes in the kitchen with all these elaborate custom cabinetry and all this stuff. You need to do your finishes and make your house, or plan to make that budget of that house similar to the finishes of the houses that are in the area. We rehab about 75 houses a year, and honestly, most of them come a little over budget, if not a lot over budget. However, we are extremely conservative when we run our initial numbers. After that, we go in and tighten all the numbers, get bids on everything, send our contractors in. At that point, we really try to dial in the exact rehab, if we're actually going to be rehabbing it. And then things always go wrong, but in general, we like to be as conservative as we can and build in enough fluff for errors that could happen, that will happen. They'll happen. Just got to the house. Let's get out. Let's walk through the house, and I'm going to show you how much things cost, some kind of benchmarks you can look at to get an initial quick rehab number. Here we are outside the house. We're gonna head in. Something to note, obviously rehabs can look different. You can have 10 different people in a rehab and you can come up with 10 different rehabs and 10 different numbers. So what we're gonna do is go over some basic, simple fundamentals and kind of get you some guide points that you can use to get initial quick numbers. After that, you need to get bids on things. You need to hire out a general contractor. You need to go off of your experience and actually give hard numbers on every little detail of the house in order to be accurate. That comes with time. But if you don't have that experience and you don't have that time yet, this is some good ways to get some initial numbers. I'm in what used to be the kitchen. We got it demoed out, and as you can see, painting the walls, getting ready to put the new cabinets and countertops and put the whole kitchen back together. So let's get started with the 3 levels of rehabs. There's a simple cosmetic fix where you're just going in, you're painting, you're replacing floors, just simple surface rehabs. The second level is a little bit more of a detail. You're doing all the surfaces, the flooring, kind of replacing a few things, but potentially a kitchen or maybe a roof, 1 or 2 big ticket items, you know, those costly items. Level 3 is when you're going in rehabbing the entire house. The whole thing needs gutted down to the floors, kitchens, bathrooms, everything, several big ticket items, a roof, windows, HVAC, you know, pretty much everything in the house. Those are the 3 levels. Let's talk about how to figure out which level you need and how much those levels cost. All right, let's go over those additional levels. Let's use this house as an example. This is a 1,000 square foot house. So for simple math, we're gonna base these initial levels off of the square foot of the house. So this is a 1,000 square foot house. So if this house needs a simple level 1 cosmetic surfaces only rehab, what we do is we do $15 to $20 per square foot. Now, the levels in between the levels has got a little bit of gray area. What's the difference between a level 2, a level 3? But in general, level 1 is those simple cosmetic type fixes. You know, this is probably between a level 2 and a level 3 considering what I'm looking at, what I'm seeing. You know, a level 1 wouldn't be replacing the entire kitchen and replacing every single bathroom. This has 2 bathrooms, replacing all of those and gutting those. Level 1 is just more like maybe a couple floors in some rooms, some paint, a little thing here or there, but nothing crazy, not redoing the entire house and having the entire house torn up. So simple cosmetic surfaces rehab, and that is gonna be $15 to $20 per square foot. When I say that, I'm talking about, more like Midwest type prices. Obviously in downtown LA, 15 bucks a square foot's not gonna work, but this is a good general number you can go off of, and then you can adjust as you see numbers in the future. And if you know your market's more expensive than the Midwest, then bump it up a little bit. So this house, this 1,000 square foot house, if it just needed a little less work than it has now, that 15 to 20 bucks per square foot, so that $15,000 is a great initial number to use for your initial rehab number. So if that were this house and I put $20,000 on my initial numbers, that'll at least probably get me pretty close to a decent number. Don't really love that freaking tree. A lot of landscaping work needed at this house, holy crap. So the next level is level 2, and that's probably what this house is, honestly. It's a cosmetic rehab, but we're not going too deep. Looked to me like the windows were in decent shape. We're replacing the kitchen, sprucing up a couple of the bathrooms, maybe replacing an HVAC, a little bit of exterior work, the roof's fine. We're not replacing everything in the house, so that level 2 is probably what this house is. That's kind of in between the cosmetic, just simple surfaces, and in between the entire gut. That is usually more like $30 to $35 per square foot, which I think is the budget on this house. I think the budget on this house is right around $30,000, which makes sense because this is a 1,000 square foot house and a level 2 type rehab. Now, as I talked about earlier, each of those levels 1, 2, and 3, it is tricky to know where to stop and when to stop. That's something that's gonna come with time. You're not gonna have your very first rehab and your very first initial rehab number be dead on and perfect. It's gonna take time. You're gonna need to adjust over time and make corrections and adjust things for your specific market and how much materials are costing and how much labor is costing. However, a good initial way to do it is using these levels. So a level 2 type of rehab that I just discussed is going to be here in the Midwest, 30 to 35 bucks a square foot. And again, if you're on the coast or something that's a little bit more expensive, adjust that up per cost of living. Kind of maybe look at the cost of living in St. Louis and however much more it is in San Diego or maybe down in Austin. Initially, if you don't know anything, adjust cost of living at the numbers I'm giving you a little bit higher in the coast. Level 3 rehabs are those deep dives where you're replacing pretty much everything in the house. You're not ripping it down to the studs and putting in all new plumbing and electric, but you're basically rehabbing everything because the house is in that bad of shape. It's either that outdated where every surface and everything has to be torn out and re-put back together, or it's just simply in that bad of condition. A house like that in the Midwest here, and in most states is going to be that $50 to $60 per square foot. So that 1,000 square foot house we talked about earlier, if you're doing a complete rehab on that house, that 50 bucks per square foot, so that 50 to 60,000 rehab cost is going to be a good initial number to use. Obviously, after you get in there or under your due diligence period, you're going to need to get in and get bids on everything or run a general contractor through there that has experience to give you an exact number, because that 1,000 square foot house, if it needs everything, that could be 75. It could be 45 too if some of the stuff's in pretty good condition that you're not familiar with. So you need to get final bids on things as well as get an experienced person in there before you finalize your contract or start your rehab or run your final numbers. However, that 50 to 60 bucks a square foot is a good initial number to use. A great way to initially get a rough number to run your number, your purchase number, and your rehab formula on is using those levels. Use these, but get experience. That is the best way to learn. You learn the most on the job. Now, there are other ways to get good numbers. Get 3 bids on everything you do, even if you get that during your contingency period of your contract, which is in between when you get it under contract and when you have to actually close on it. Most people can get a 1 to 2 week contingency that in that 1 to 2 weeks well before they close, they can back legally out of the contract. That is another good way. Get that 2 week contingency period, get all the bids you can if that's the route you choose to go. That is a good way to get accurate numbers and know if it's a good deal or not. Another great way is to utilize the tools that we have at FasterFreedom University. We have a rehab calculator that is probably well over 100 columns long that shows you specifically, breaks out each room. Here's how much a full replacement kitchen costs. Here's a partial replacement. Here's just a cost for appliances. We literally break it down to every single part of the house. There's not one part of the house that's not on that rehab calculator. We give that away in all of our courses and all our mentorships and our boot camps and everything. So if you have any interest, make sure to go to the link in the description below to find out more about FasterFreedom University, where we teach you exactly how much things cost and give you the most grooved path and the path of least resistance to figuring out things like how to figure out ARVs, how much rehab costs, all that kind of stuff. We make your life a lot easier, save you a lot of headaches and a lot of money. One thing you're gonna want to do to figure out your rehab finishes is to look at the houses around it and the houses in the area, looking at the houses on this street and looking at the ones that have sold recently and the condition of the interiors and exteriors of the house. You don't wanna under rehab, but you definitely don't want to over rehab. If all these houses have, mid 90s type cabinets with, decent countertops, no backsplash, white or, black appliances, those are the types of finishes I can do. Maybe I can go up one level and put granite countertops and stainless steel appliances, but I'm not gonna wanna put in marble and all this fancy, $30 a square foot for the backsplash. You don't want to over rehab. My goal and a simple tip for you would be to look at the competition and take their rehabs and do it slightly better so you kind of separate yourself. Even if you're rehabbing a rental property, make it slightly better than the competition. And if you're rehabbing a flip that you're gonna sell on the open market, make it a little bit better than the competition as well. You'll sell quicker and probably for a little more money, or you get a little more rent. All right, well, we just got done walking the house. Hopefully that gave you some tips, some of the levels that you could look at to give you some initial numbers. But as I said, definitely look at your numbers and get bids on everything and go back and look at if you've done a couple. You learn by doing it. I can only give you so much, but you have to take chances and go out. And if you really want to be sure, like I said, get a contingency period in there, get contractors in there, hire a general contractor that'll charge you a little bit on top of it or give a profit split to them. Do something as you're learning and maybe pay a little bit more for help, but as you learn over time and as you do this more, you will understand what to look for and what not to look for and what things cost. It's really not as hard as it sounds. You just got to go do it.